legacy and lessons first segment there. This episode here, we're not even going to focus too much on the timing. Eventually, those things will come, right?
Yeah, we'll get it tight.
Yeah, we'll get the timing. We'll get kind of more, but just to have you understand that we want to have the conversations that these are conversations my dad and I have all the time, right? And so
Yeah, that's so.
we're just putting it in a podcast format, and we
Yep.
realize a lot of the stuff is on many different topics, many different subjects, many different ways to add value. I would also say that I had a point there. What was the point? You know where I was going
You're
with this?
asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. Anyways, I don't know. So that was the
Hey,
first segment. I'll remember it. If it's important, I'll remember it.
if it's important to come back, yeah, exactly.
Moving on to our second affinity stone, value and ventures. Won't go into all of it now, but we do have an info card. The info card will give you some context as to what's going on there. And again, you saw the Generation Gap podcast info cards from earlier, so hopefully things will start to make a bit more sense. So we'll jump into it. So the second topic, Dad, for
Yeah.
this one is, let me see
Yo, there's
here.
more.
Yeah.
That's what
What's the point?
there's
Yeah. So
yeah,
what's
sorry,
the
go,
point
go.
of purpose if the system eats it anyways? Okay. And the affirmative statement, or a way to go about it, is saying, build it so that they can steal it. So this is kind of the build it so that they can steal it. Value and ventures, this is the topic around that for this. The context summary, so I'll give you a bit more. They say
Yeah.
imitation is the highest form of flattery, but what happens when institutions don't just imitate, they absorb? One day you're mentoring kids with your own model, the next day the school district rolls it out without your name on it. In the mission driven world, is doing good enough, or do you have to defend your good to keep it yours? That tension between service and survival might be the real generational divide.
Hmm.
Okay, so we'll take a look
Okay, what I do. Okay, what I do.
at this YouTube short that inspired this conversation today. So I'll go ahead and play that for you guys.
I go into the high schools and I teach kids entrepreneurship skills.
Yeah, that's not a business.
What?
not a
Says who?
Yeah, says me,
Look at this.
Why?
because it's not scalable.
Why do you say that?
What? That it's not scalable.
Exactly.
Because you're the business. And even if you developed a system of teaching entrepreneurship, your rate of growth is always going to be limited to the size of the market you're operating in. As if what you're teaching actually does work, the schools are going to do it themselves. It's actually a good lesson for all of us to learn. If you sell into someone else's population, unless you control fully the value proposition and the intellectual property, that person is going to sooner or later figure out what you're doing and they're going to do it themselves. And you would if you were the school. If I'm a school and I can collect extra lesson fees for teaching what you're teaching, I'm going to do it.
Do.
There
Okay.
you go. So
Hey,
yeah, so I'll
okay.
just give. So I'll just say that.
I'm hearing this for the first time, right? Like, so this is new.
Yeah.
That's
So
that's
this
pretty
is
cool.
it, Dad. This is what I look at that, and this is why it's a source
What is your
box.
one second? What is your take on that? Because okay,
I'll tell you
because
what my take is. It's a
it's
source
not
box.
clear. It's not clear.
Yeah,
What
it's clear to
that
me.
was.
It's clear to me.
Okay, so
Yeah, it's way clear.
paraphrase it because I think maybe because it's the first time I'm hearing it. But
Okay.
go. What
So
is he saying there?
so essentially, what he's saying is obviously this is
Yeah.
somebody that I follow. Do I remember his name exactly? No, but I do subscribe to him. I do watch a lot of
I
his
know
stuff,
him.
and he goes around and
So
helps.
South African guy.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, he's good. He's really good.
Yeah,
Really
and
good.
so he goes around, helps a lot of people with business related things, and honestly, a lot of different stuff. And obviously, in this conversation, she believes she's here at this seminar or conference or what have you, clearly to ask about, clearly feeling really good about her business that she has, right? And this is something
Mhm.
that is talked about in Rich Dad Poor Dad, understanding the different types of not employment, ways to make money or have. And a lot of times people confuse
Employment.
self-employment with a business. And I think this is
Yep.
kind of falling into that category here where
Oh,
s-
okay.
is it built with scale? Are you I'll say this. This is the main point I really want to get to because I might forget it. when I watch this video, the insight that I get from this and what pops up
Yeah.
in my head is, for all the corporate jobs that I've working in universities as well, this is something, the idea of creating and innovating and wanting to help, I think that was good enough in the past to just focus on that and you would be promoted. Where I think now you do have to have this sort of dual intent of creating and innovating and providing value, but also sort of finding a way to protect what it is that you're doing. Because what she's saying here, I've been on the school side where she's going into schools teaching entrepreneurship. I've come up with programs and systems and then seen the school use it and seen institutions use it and the places I work use it, and then not either attribute the value back in a promotional sense, in a credit sense. But again, this is what he's saying. You would do the same thing too. And in fairness, looking at it, I can see that being true. I think there's a way to do business, and I'll close it here for my opening remarks. I think there's a way to do business where it's a win-win-win. Win for the customers, win for you as a business, win for whomever that third party is, if it's somebody working for you. And I think going about it that way is important. But I do understand that perspective. So again, I will just remind you what the topic is for this one. Build it so that they can steal it. What's the point of purpose if the system eats it anyways? If the system is going to take it anyways? What's the point of doing this if they're going to just take it anyways? So I'd ask you, Dad, opening question, okay? Was there ever a time you gave something away for free and later realized it had real market value?
Every day. Like that question, yeah. Because I used to just give away business models. I give away a lot of stuff for free, but I also I'm aware that it has market value, and I've seen some of my ideas turn into businesses for other people. People even get awards and things like that because I usually give away the business model. So the question, another question maybe I should be asking myself is why? Why am I doing that? Well, I remember when I started learning about business models and all that, different frameworks and things like that. One of the best way for me to get really good at anything is to do it, or to help somebody else do it from scratch and go all the way to market, or even if it doesn't mature into self-sustaining business, but it's actually can go to market, because that's the way I learn. So there's quite a few times. I'm sure you know of a lot of them. Mm-hmm. So, but if I may, and I may just that's I said, yeah, okay. So, but I want to touch. So that's my answer. So maybe I should ask you if there's any more before, because I really want to say something a little bit more on what you were saying, and I want to make sure I don't sound like I'm challenging some of these ideas, because I agree with them, but I think it's from my engineering. I usually ask a lot of different questions because I agree with him that we should try to protect our intellectual property, but I think intellectual property is so difficult and expensive to defend. I don't even know if that's always the correct answer. I think once you have a good idea, I think in your look at your generation. If you can first mover, and these days, not first mover advantage, but it's a little bit more than first mover advantage. Not because you're the first mean that you're going to take over, but if you're the first to gain traction and the first to gain virality, right? And they're known and have a really good story. In a lot of cases, that's more defensible than intellectual property, because intellectual property is very difficult and expensive to defend. So music, I understand because it's easier, but there's other things where just to have the intellectual property in some of the ideas, it's very, very expensive. But I think blockchain, I don't know if the court system is up to date yet, but I think it's going to have your intellectual property, which is defensible. It's going to be a lot easier. I know you and I were talking about that a long time ago, where we even bought a lot of the blockchain domain names and stuff like that, where people could upload their ideas on the blockchain, and because of the time stamp and the immutability of the blockchain, that might be one of the easiest and cheapest way to create foolproof intellectual property. But I don't know if the courts, if it's up to the court.
So I'd follow up with this then. So how do you know? So in this scenario, for example, how do you know when to serve the system or to build your own? Like that's kind of the thing where she's there. She's clearly, he's talking about selling into another population. At what point or what kind of signs or keys could you say, it's time for you to start building your own infrastructure? Or does it make sense for her? And you said, there's other factors. So for her, maybe it is the love of being able to help students and see their spark in their eyes, where if you go private, for example, and build your own thing, now all of a sudden, who's able to attain your resources? Who's fitting the bill? When you go into the school system, right, they have a certain budget that budget is probably subsidized by the government or that city or town to have certain programs or after school programs. So the school is fitting that bill. All of a sudden, you talk about your business model. You change that, and let's just say she wants to grow this business. She has to make it a private thing. Or let's just say she has to go outside. All of a sudden, now you're looking at parents that have certain disposable income for their kids, and all of a sudden, you're no longer helping the low income. You know what I mean?
Yes and yes.
Right? And that's
yes and yes.
Yeah, you could go with
no,
that.
but I think there's a delay in my thing. No, I cut you off, but I'm saying yes and yes. I don't think I agree with his premise, right? When he said it's not a business. Again, there's a difference between, as you alluded earlier, between self-employment, a regular business, and a startup. Right, yeah. A startup. So not all business are startups. What do I mean by that? Startups, by definition, they're doing something old in a new way, or they're going for a completely new market. Or sometimes they because of their offer, they actually create a new market. So they don't create the new jobs. Like that need was already there, but they find a new way to go after that market. The offer is different. So I don't think when he said that's not a business, I think a better way if I were to say that, I would say it's a lifestyle business that's not defensible, right? Unless you actually find a way to start certain way of teaching, right? And then you start get those information out, and then you kind of your SOP, your standard operating procedure on your business model in such a way that it's hard for them to just copy it. And I disagree with him, and he's a very smart guy, right? I like him. Like, I learn a lot from him. But I think there's not everything you can copy. So let's say, I think one of the things you can't copy is your story. Why is she teaching this thing? You understand? Like, what was the reason for her to start teaching this? Okay, let me give you an example. She had a great job, and they kick her out of the job for whatever reason. She was homeless, right? And then she started to found a book, and then an entrepreneur book, and then she start teaching. You understand? That is very difficult to copy, because we're talking about business now. It's almost like no business cannot operate without a story. And if your story is very authentic, that's a very defensible business, right? So when he said it's not a business, I think he means it's not a startup, or it's not a scalable business. I think he mentioned scalable. But there's a lot of business that weren't scalable last week because of agents and AI agents, right? Because I'm in that field. I'm on the cutting edge of that. that is also all of a sudden that could become a very scalable business because of the change in technology and so on. That's my point. I'm done.
That's a good point. So would you say that in going about it the way that he's saying, do you think protecting your idea means you trust going into starting a business with the idea of protecting your idea? Does that feel like you're trusting people less? Does that go against the mindset of that is needed, the abundance, growth mindset, as they claim?
I will tell you the other thing that I think is not like what I think he could say that a little bit better.
And again, just
when you started
for context sake for him, we're talking about a 1 minute slice of a video. We're just going off. We're not going.
I know.
We're just going off of what we've seen in that 1 minute.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm doing. But what I'm saying is the question I'm answering is the one where you said, okay, tell me if I'm wrong. Like people should not are people trusting less, so therefore they should get intellectual property if they're doing a business. That's kind of the idea.
Yeah. The idea is that if you're needing to protect your business, if you're starting something, and you need to protect it, and you're thinking about protecting it as much as possible. Does that mean you trust people less? Does that tie to scarcity? Like, I'll say it like this: is that a viable mindset to have?
Okay, good. Yeah,
is it the right mindset to have?
I don't know if it. I don't know if I can answer it like with just 2 sentences, because
yes and yes.
I have to no, yes and yes and yes and no. Yeah. No, I have to go elaborate a little bit more, because when you go into a business, usually you're taking a while to find out what the problem that the person has. So any type of, and it can take you sometimes years to actually find out what are those set of problems that the customer has, and what are the set of solution that you have that matches exactly those problem. So you have a set of problem and you have a set of solution at a correct price, the way the person wants to do it, and so on, right? So sometimes, so initially when you're starting a business, even years, you don't want to go patent anything yet, because you don't even know what the business model is yet. You're still learning what the business model is. Yeah, the business model is.
Is there a difference?
Yeah, there's a big difference. So the business plan is an execution tool. So, for example, I'll tell you what the best business plan is. You're in a business, like we're doing this podcast, and we're doing a great job, and people know exactly what our personality is, and people want to don't mind brand with us, right? Co-brand or something like that. They know exactly. And we also studied it for a couple of months or years or whatever. And then we said, okay,
hold that.
We have a business.
See the thing on your display?
Yeah, but it's too small. I can't. I'm not going to be able to see it.
Okay.
Read it. Tell me what it's saying.
I can't see everything that it says, but it is.
Oh, it's coming from me?
Yeah. That's on your display.
Really?
It's your camera, yeah.
Okay, 1 second. Sorry.
No. As I was saying, guys, we're gonna post this regardless. Like, we're not even gonna chop it up. I think it's good to show,
Yeah, that was me. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that again. All right.
Back.
All right. So the question, though, let me finish that piece where I'm saying So I don't think it's a bad thing if you already know what your business is, right? And the question that you asked, the follow-up question that you asked is whether the business model is the same as a business plan. Well, the business plan is an execution tool. When you know your customer, you know what I mean? Like it's a plan, so you can do everything. You have the resources to do everything that you're outlining. So it's a plan. Right it's deterministic. So for example, if Walmart has a plan to go build a Walmart in Jamaica, they have the money, they have the data, they have the skill set and all that stuff. They can have a business plan. Now, a business model is a learning tool. You don't know what you kind of come up with an hypothesis. It's like an hypothesis that here's a problem that you think people are willing to pay for, and you have a set of solution that you think will match those problems, and you think you can do it at a cost, right? That's less than the revenue that it can generate. In other words, you can make a profit, right? And now you start iterating. You start saying, is this what you want? And the customer said, not really. But so you wouldn't want to go patent that. You want to patent when you have a repeatable business model where most of the stuff that you're offering is kind of what the customer want the solution for the customer, and they have the money to pay for it, and you can do it at a cost where it's profitable for you. That's the business model. So one is a learning tool, the other one is a like a implementation tool, right? That's why one is called a plan and one is called a model. So the plan kind of suggests deterministic behavior where you can do it, and there's a series of steps that you can follow. Where the business model, you're just learning and there's no rule. You're just kind of asking questions, getting data, analyzing it, doing stuff, action, and so on and so on. That's why it's a model. It's more malleable,
right,
as opposed to deterministic.
Okay.
So that's how it works.
Correct.
This was a test.
Look, so I think we kind of get a good sense there.
Yeah.
Again, just kind of bringing it back home with this one, the idea, the stealing, right? When you're starting a venture, right? Do we have to protect it in today's day and age, right? And I think what I've gathered from this conversation so far is that, yes, there's a way to do that, but that's not the only context. And it is a business, perhaps not a scalable one, but that's also something that you can learn to do. But as far as that short that we watched, it gave the impression that she was defenseless, that it's entirely up to whatever the school wants to do. But a part of this, and this is what we got in this conversation, is a part of the business is your why, right? And how much of that is you. And I think that resonates with me, and it resonates for what I know as well. For example, Microsoft takes a lot of when you look at Microsoft stuff, it takes on the personality of the founder, right? A lot of these businesses take on the personality of the founder that's built throughout, and that resonates even when they leave. If they come back, Steve Jobs, right? You can see a lot of that remains there, especially if they were able to either articulate their why and or act on their why. And I think that part, and I think this is where today people are willing to, and Simon Sinek has the book Start With Why, and he says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So I think there's a lot of power in being able to articulate your why. And I think not just articulating it, it can be built in. And actually, to use the business model canvas and the business plan, I think you should start by creating your business model canvas. So using that as an exercise, do understand your why. Ask yourself the 5 whys or go through, and we can talk about that in foundations and framework. That's what our 4th segment is for, speaking on frameworks more directly. But I think the main thing here is that I think it's a good video. I think it's a good insight that he had. I think it's definitely going to help her understand, okay, you know what? Maybe there's a bit more I can do, perhaps even protecting my stuff, or even as far as your offering, letting her think a little bit more. But I think with this insight that you're saying, she does have something, right? When I watched that video and I looked at her, she seems like somebody that's very proud to have helped. I help kids' entrepreneurship skills. And we're talking about a day and age where, for example, a lot of teachers, speaking as an academic advisor, as someone who worked as one at a university, high school teachers, a lot of them are just doing it because that's the job that they can have, and it provides a lot of security. A lot of them, there's obviously good teachers, don't do it for the love of the game, or love of the game in this context is to better the children and help them and be the futures of the nation and so forth. And so to have people that want to come in from the outside, I'm really happy about that, to be able to teach them skills that are valid. And you can see, I'll even give her another bit of credit. She is willing to go out and seek education. And this is, I think, brings it back to your point. Seek education in this video because she's at these seminars learning about it, and really wanting to do better to bring that back to the kids, right? Where I think that you always mention education has to serve a purpose. Education has to be lifelong. That's how I describe the education that you're focused. You mentioned about, for example, the education system and how that plays, but you've never questioned the value of knowledge and the value of education and learning lifelong. That was always far exceeding than anything else. So I think it was a good video. I think it was a good
I think so
conversation
too.
and insight.
Yeah, I think so. I'll say the last few words. He's doing something great. He's pushing entrepreneurism in Africa, which is the growth area of the next century.
Okay, what I do.
So, actually, he's telling her the truth about if you are your business. Oh, wait. I wanted to say something. I just didn't want to interrupt you when you're talking about the why. Sometimes we have to be careful when we're using the why when we're doing a business. So unless our why is is aligned with helping people and solving problems, right? For example, so let's say my why is I don't take disrespect from people, and then I come up with a why I don't do that. In a business I think is so impersonal. I think it's the most impersonal thing there is. It's so impersonal that it's not about you the moment you said you're going to start a business. You really have to start looking from the side through the eyes of the customer. What are their why? You understand? So if your why is about looking about what their why is, then I think the why thing will work perfectly. But in most cases, you have to put away your why if you're in business and start thinking about what is that person that you're trying to serve is trying to do? What are some of their struggle? How can you help them make progress? So I think the why is very important, but I think the weight of the why has to be shifted from your why towards the why of the customer. But what you and I are doing right now, because it's so personal for us, it's about our why. Why are we doing it? That's different from if we were to just get a business, then all of a sudden we have to make sure that there's some kind of alignment with our core belief system on the business that we're offering. We have to look at that first.
So that's something we can definitely dive into more, because what we're talking about, what made it defensible is her why. Like, she's part of the business that is, anyways, we can definitely go into that.
No, go, wait, go. No, finish. This is important because I think you're onto something.
I think
that try to finish your thought.
Yeah, I think that the why in a business, right? Why you're doing what you're doing is important, and I think people could see that. And I think for her, again, there's a lot of people that I do a lot of after school programs that don't care about it and they're in it for the money. I look at her in 1 minute, not having seen her in any other video or knowing her at all personally or any other capacity. Don't follow her on social, and I see that she's somebody that cares. That's the impression that I get. So just off of that alone, I would like to support her stuff in any ways that I can. If it's through disposable income, if it was through a referral, that's not something I'm doing. That's part of her business, and part of the reason she's been able to, I would assume, get into the schools and doing what she's doing is because other people share in the decision-making roles in those universities, or being able to see that. So isn't that part of your marketing, right? In some sense, but you're not accounting for it, but you're expressing it. And so
I think one second, I have to cut you there because you touched on some very important point. I think that's that is that gap. If we're in generation gap, so let's talk about gaps. That gap could be social entrepreneurism. The difference between pure capitalistic, just I need to capture as much value as possible and all that. Then social entrepreneurism, like Khan Academy. I'm sure that Sal is okay and never have to work again, even though it was a hedge fund in hedge fund and trader or investor before. But I think if you push the why a lot, like I used to do a lot of mentorship for free. People like think, why would you give out all this information for free? But that is the very thing that turns me into some kind of expert in a whole bunch of different areas, right? So I think it can coalesce. So I agree with you. The why from her perspective, if she changed her business model a little bit, all of a sudden, like a quasi, not
Business
just
model
business, right? Right, like where
of the business model
you know those.
canvas.
Yeah, just change our business model. Like, so, you know, the business model canvas usually have 9 blocks, where you have different types of business model canvas. But the one that we have in mind of the 9 blocks and all that stuff. So the people actually, or market segment could also be for not for profit. And she still can make a lot of money, because not for profit and all that. So the business model could change, and all of a sudden it's still a scalable business. Khan Academy is the biggest school on the planet, right? And it's just doing good things. Yet, it attracts millions and millions of dollars, right? So there's other ways to do it. We can get into that in some other episode. We'll come back on
And you
this.
guys can let us know which topics, of course, which to get into.
Yeah.
So